Thank you, Carmen. Awesome. That was quite the start of a meeting. So, okay, I would like to welcome everyone here to the Utah Watershed Council, and especially those new in attendance on the council. But first, I'd like to recognize Carly. She has, maybe today, most recently been appointed as the Watershed Council Coordinator for the Division of Water Resources. So, yes, congratulations. That's awesome. Great. We've got some council members on electronic connection. So we've got, let's see, I can't see everybody. Where is Mike? Mike Noel is there. Who else is on the Watershed Council that's online? Could you introduce yourselves? I know Brandon is going to be presenting. Go ahead.
This is Brett Prevedel from the Uintah Watershed Council.
Brett, good to see you. We've got several from
This is
Resources.
Brandon Yardley from Beaver, Cedar Watershed Council.
Great, Brandon. Are we going to be hearing from you shortly?
Well, I hope not. I don't have anything prepared, so
Well,
I'm just listening, I think.
We'll ask you to present. Great.
I hope I'm not presenting.
Who else online would like to introduce themselves?
Andy Nickel with the Sevier Watershed Council.
Great. Welcome, Andy.
And this is Chris Hamlet, Director
Dave
of the Division
Jessup
of
with
Emergency
Kanab
Management.
Oh, boy. Okay, you got Chris. There was a little overlap there. Who else was on besides Chris?
Dave Jessup, Kanab Creek, Virgin River.
Dave Jessup. Great. Okay, and then those present, why don't we introduce? Yes.
Is Kelly, I see Kelly Pearson on. Is he on in place? Is he sitting in for the commissioner? Okay.
I am, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Warren, could you start and we'll introduce the rest of the council that's present here.
I'll just read off my name tag. Warren Peterson, Water Attorney.
Val J. Rigby, I'm the new Utah Farm Bureau President.
Nathan Dowds with the Bear River Watershed Council.
Rick Smith with the Weaver River Watershed.
Sterling Brown, Utah Lake Council.
Robert Moore, representing Utah Associated Special Districts.
Todd Stonely, Division of Water Resources.
Brett Palmer with West Desert Watershed Council.
Kim Shelley with Environmental Quality.
Laura Briefer, Jordan River Watershed Council.
Marcel Shoup, representing environmental conservation organizations.
Carly Payne, Division of Water Resources.
Go ahead.
Jordan Nelson with Trout Unlimited, also on the Utah Lake Watershed Council. Have staff on several of the other councils.
Right. Tristy? Probably not. Oh, there we go. Nice, a roaming mic.
You want me to do it again? Jordan Nielsen, Trout Unlimited. I'm also on the Utah Lake Watershed Council.
Christy Hansen, Bear River Watershed Council Chair.
Eric McCulley, Jordan River Watershed Council Chair.
Soren Simonson, Secretary for the Jordan River Watershed Council.
Shannon Clow, Water Resources.
Paul Monroe with the West Desert Watershed Council Chair.
Great, and I'm Scott Paxman. Should have introduced myself, but Chair of the Watershed Council, and we appreciate all those in attendance. Okay, and we have a quorum by happenstance, so that's great. We can actually do some business today. So first of all, we'd like to look for a motion to approve the minutes. Or were there any comments, corrections, additions to the minutes as they were sent out? Okay, looking for a motion.
I'll move. Oh, sorry, Sterling. Would you like to go first? And I will second your motion, if that's permissible.
Sterling Brown, I will make a motion to approve the January 18th, 2024 meeting minutes.
And I will second that motion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Warren.
There were two things I wanted to note in the minutes. This one's a really big one. We have an R left out of Marcel's name in one place there in the minutes. The other is the minutes said that the chair asked that each member of the council submit a name for.
It did.
And I think what the chair said was those who are interested in submitting a name, please do so.
Yeah, good clarification. I noticed that as well. I says, well, I might have said that, but. Okay, great. Okay, with those corrections, we've got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of January 18th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? By the same sign. Great, motion carries. Thank you. Okay.
Make sure those online.
Oh, heard. Okay, yeah, just a note for those online, if we're looking for a motion, I'll try to wait to hear your vote on those motions. Thank you. Okay, next is the election of the vice chair. Now, we've been waiting for this for several months, so we've got to move ahead on it. By way of introduction, we have 5 nominations. I should have had them put them up on the screen, actually, but is that possible? That'd be great. And we'd like to also accept any nominations from the floor at this time if there are any additional nominations. But we can probably wait till we see who's up there first. It disappeared again.
Oh, it's become one of the small. If you pin it, we'll see it.
Paul or Carmen, can you pin my screen? Thank you.
There we go. Okay. Okay, we got Sterling Brown, Val J. Rigby, Warren Peterson, Marcel Shoup, and Ricky Renko. So, any other nominations at this time? Okay, so since we have 5 nominees, it's going to be a little tedious, but we'll try to get this done rather quickly. So we're going to pass around voting sheets for each of you. I want each of you to vote on one person. Vote for one person as vice chair, and then we'll collect those, and Carly will get those counted fairly quickly and see what.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Did we check to make sure that everyone who's nominated wants to serve in this capacity?
I heard from most.
Okay.
I don't know that I heard from Ricky.
Okay. I didn't know if Sterling really wanted it or like. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. We probably ought to find out if there's any that would like to be withdrawn from that list. So, yes, Marcel.
I think I'm in Sterling's boat. I didn't necessarily request it, and would be happy to serve. But I think my term, I think I'm up for
at the end of this year?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think that, I'm not quite sure how that would work out.
Okay.
I guess, anyway, I'll just put that out there.
It is a 2-year term, I believe, on the Utah Watershed Council. And so, yes, we would just address that when it comes up. Yeah. Okay, first of all, any other nominations? Final call? Okay, we'll close the nominations with a motion, please.
So moved.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
And a second to close nominations for vice chair. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Nominations are closed. Okay, so quickly, pick a name for vice chair on that list, and yes, I should have mentioned that. So online, you can still vote. If you would just send Carly, do they have your contact information? I put it in the chat. Okay. Carly's got her, I guess, cell phone number or something, contact information online in the chat. So just put one of the names there with your name. I'm sure it'll show up, and we'll collect your votes that way. So.
Do you want that in the chat or to text her?
Yeah, to text, sorry. We need to have that texted to Carly, if you wouldn't mind. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, excellent. So if everybody's finished, we'll have Carly go collect those, or someone anyway. Great. Okay, so they will be counting those as we proceed, and as soon as I get word, we'll make that announcement. If there is a tie, we'll have to run through that one more time to narrow that down. Okay, yes, Warren.
Marty's not here today, so I have to be obnoxious, double, not that Marty is, but I'm a usurper here, so. In order for it to be an action of the council, it takes a majority, so let's see, it's not just a majority of those present, but it's a majority of the council. So for that election to be effective, we'll have to make sure that whoever's in that, you may need a runoff, in other words, if we don't have a candidate that gets a majority of the number of members of the council.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. We'll work with it.
I see that I've done my, fulfilled my promise there.
All right.
Warren, this is Marty. I'm here just via phone. I
awesome.
Connect on the other link, so I agree.
All right. Look at that.
Thank you for being obnoxious in my stead.
Okay.
You're welcome, I think. I'm not sure how to answer that one.
Okay, with that, we'll move ahead with the anticipated certification of the Cedar Beaver Watershed Council. So let's see, who is going to be presenting that again? Brandon. So we've all received a copy of their application, or their organizing documents and policies template, as well as the letter from their council. Where did I put that letter? And just to let everybody know, they have a list of members on that local council, and it looks like Commissioner Brandon Yardley is the chair. David Harris, vice chair. Tammy Pearson, Commissioner Pearson, was elected to be the representative on the Utah Watershed Council, and Stephanie Hill was elected to serve as secretary.
Where do you see that?
It was in the letter, on the letter itself.
I have it on the screen also.
Oh, there it is. So with that, before Brandon makes comments to that, were there any questions or concerns with their submittals? Yes, Warren.
Sorry, Marty, I'm so practiced at being obnoxious, you don't hold a candle, my friend. But should we have a report from Marty as to whether he had any comments on this?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll ask for that.
I have some, but
Okay. Marty, did you see anything amiss from their application?
I did not. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
I did not see anything that would interfere with certification today. There was one area where it indicated in the letter that the chair, vice chair, secretary, and Utah Watershed Council members officers have been selected. the bylaw, or not bylaws, the organizing document says upon certification, you select. Now, to certify, we don't need to know who those individuals are, and that's why I don't think it has
Interesting. Okay.
anything to do with today. But the council may want to go back afterwards and redo that just to take away any doubts or ambiguity as to whether they followed the process correctly and the validity of the votes were, intact. So other than that, it was just a few clerical things. Let's say nothing substantive that would disqualify them from certification.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Warren.
A couple of things, and maybe this is a question best answered by Marty. Let's see, I don't have the reference right here. It's the reference to the number of council members. I think that's in Article 2, Section 1. It says the council will be composed of 9 to 21 members. And then in the letter and so on, it talks about 10 being enough to constitute a quorum. My question is, since that's a range of numbers, how do they know when they have a quorum? I think Brandon could probably answer this.
So,
Marty, go ahead. I'm going to be quiet.
The point, you make a good point, but I would say, given the way it said, they could either write down the actual number that they have for this document, but if they see it changing in the near future, perhaps they want to leave it in a range. But majority will always be, a majority of the members, not present members, but of the members total. That's just a unique way the legislature wrote this statute.
Mm-hmm.
And so every meeting, you're going to have an idea of how many members you've got, and to make sure that you've got to have a majority there to have a quorum, and then to carry a motion, you've got to have a majority, not of those present, a majority of all members.
Okay, good clarification.
The other,
I think you've got another coming up on the agenda. One other little caveat to that with some recent legislation. So I'll wait till then and bring that up.
Yeah, that's true. So the other question I had is on both in the letter and in the Section 5 member terms. It may be easier to look at it from the letter. Just Carly, are you running the screen? Is that no?
You want to look at the letter?
Yeah, let's look at the letter. I think it's easier to pick it out there than it is on the. You can see it in the rules, but in the letter itself, it's kind of fun to see. We've wanted these councils to be creative and match up to their own situation. The act was written for that very, so that could happen.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm going to ask about some of the creativity, though, that I see reflected in the list of how they've matched up with these. One of them is, let's see, I need to scroll. Mutual irrigation companies. Dusty Wiseman is listed, and his affiliation being the Milford Pumpers. But the Milford Pumpers, is that a mutual water company, or is that a distribution committee of the state engineer? Because there's a legal distinction between those two. The interesting thing, though, is that if you look, there's okay, Seth Davey from the Rocky Ford Irrigation Company, and the Rocky Ford Irrigation Company, no question, is a mutual irrigation company. So they got the right people sitting there, but maybe on the wrong seat. Right people on the bus, but maybe not in the right seats on the bus. And I wouldn't want to defer certification because of that. But that was one that caught my attention. As maybe that's the State Engineers Distribution Committee is an informal organization essentially created by the state engineer. where a mutual water company is a nonprofit corporation that has shareholders, and the act was written contemplating that it would be that nonprofit company that would be one of the check the box. So they've got the right people here to do that, but maybe not have the right name tag on them, or you know, however you want to say that. The other one is, but back to Marty's comment, one of the changes in the House Bill 280, as I recall, is that the water. Let's see. It says local sponsors of reclamation projects, and I'm not sure there are any reclamation projects in this.
I don't think so.
And the act, House Bill 280, it was somewhat ambiguous in the Watershed Council Act, but in House Bill 280 it said that means Bureau of Reclamation.
Correct.
So there's certainly no objection to having those representatives on this council, but to have them under the label of reclamation sponsor, that it don't fit.
Right.
And especially as the act is clarified now under House Bill 280, meaning Bureau of Reclamation Projects. So
we could fix that, Warren, if you just have the Bureau do some projects.
Paul,
luck.
I'll be happy to sit back comfortably and watch while you do that. After all, you got a dog in this fight. So I guess what I'm saying is, let's keep those interested people on their on their committee, on their watershed council, but putting them under that. I'd just strike the heading of local sponsors of reclamation projects and say, yeah, it's not applicable here, but you got two good members, go ahead and do them. So with those changes, with the clarification that Marty provided, and then with those kind of switching people around, I'd see no reason to not certify them today.
Okay. Great. Yes, Sterling.
I've got two, maybe three comments, questions that are kind of related to Warren's. The first is under the category of industry. As I've watched other watershed councils come and present and be certified, I've noticed that of all of the categories, industry seems to be the loosey-goosey, catch-all kind of plug a person in we want, but under the industry category. That may not be true for all watershed councils, but maybe many of them. And so as I look here at your application under industry, I see 3 individuals. Smithfield clearly would be an industry, and then I see town of Canaraville and Iron County Commissioner. Not trying to challenge you, not trying to negatively critique you, but arguably those two governmental titles on the surface would not be industry, unless there's a backstory there that clearly I don't know, and maybe I don't care. But any comment that the council wants to say about that?
Shall I ask Brandon or? Brandon, could you comment to some of those questions or concerns?
I will do my best. We did get Smithfield in there, which we felt fit, and Sterling's right, like he usually is. There was a couple other people that wanted to be on the council, and we were placing them where we thought we were the best place to put them, which was on that industry side. It's up to you guys. If we need to move those off of there, that's something you can tell us we need to do.
So I would say that's not their day jobs.
Right. Oh, absolutely. That was the comment that I was going to make.
Industry.
That's okay. That's good clarification.
Like Brandon said, they can clearly, if they need to be moved somewhere else, that's fine.
Well, public water suppliers may be a fit, but I'm not gonna
Scott,
dig my heels in on that one.
yeah, I mean, I think I would be okay with that one being kind of loose because government entities represent all constituents, including their industrial constituents.
Yeah, good point.
And like was said, this is not their day job and they may be representing others. It might be just a clarification to the council when they're speaking on with which hat they're providing feedback.
Thanks, Laura.
My second comment would be groundwater interests. I believe all watersheds, I would think, have groundwater aquifer issues and concerns. This one certainly isn't exempt from that. I'm assuming that Brandon and your group have given adequate consideration to having proper representation on groundwater interests. This kind of dovetails off of Warren's comment of Milford pumpers. I don't know who your representative is there. I don't believe I've met him, but any wiggle room there, or you feel confident or comfortable that you've got proper where you want to stand there?
With Dusty Wiseman on there as the Milford Valley Pumpers representative, that is, to Warren's point, that is not an irrigation company. That is a council set up by the state water engineer, and we represent everyone in our area as the Milford Pumpers. If it's a sticking point, Dusty, we still want him on the council. We could move him to the Rocky Ford irrigation side. He's also a member and on that board. And that's, I guess this was all new to us, and we wanted these people involved, and we were trying to fill the buckets to make sure we were representing and setting up the council the way we were directed. So that was the direction we moved. But if we need to, we still want to have these people as members. If we need to move them to different sides, if some of these buckets we can't fill if we don't have these people in there. I guess that would be what we were trying to do, is make sure everybody was covered, and still follow what we were supposed to do setting up the council.
Well, using Warren's metaphor, so long as they're on the bus, right? I think that's most important. Whether they have the right seat or not, maybe that can be adjusted down the road.
Yes, Warren.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Brandon, this is Warren. I'm an idea coming out of the Sterling's comments. You have such a substantial. The statute allows these councils to be set up basically to you can adjust them to match local circumstances, and you have such a substantial portion of your Beaver County water interests tied up in groundwater. I'd frankly think you'd be well off putting a section, a representative of groundwater interests in your operating document. And maybe Mr. Chair, I think for us to do today, just certify them as presented, because it does, we can make it fit.
Oh, absolutely.
Certify them and then let them go back and adjust their own council by adding a groundwater position and putting Dustin Wiseman there, because he would be an excellent representative of that interest. So that's just an idea for you, Brandon.
And I assume that it's appropriate if there's no one to fill a category, just leave it blank.
Yes.
As well. So.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that we had that clear direction on if we could leave. We did leave one blank,
right.
And I did. The direction we had is we were trying to fill as many of those as we can. But if we can certify today and then move some of these positions around and add a position in groundwater, we would be willing to do that for sure, if you guys would allow us.
Great. Yes, Marcel has a comment.
Thanks. I just have a question also. And like Sterling, this is not a question about the person or the person's qualifications. It's more just a curiosity. Tammy Pearson with a Beaver County Commissioner is listed for Fish and Wildlife. And I was just curious, hopefully she's a member of many environmental organizations who are working on fish and wildlife or has a role, so I just was curious, or maybe she just has an affinity for it, but it was just really curiosity also.
So she is a member of the Southern Utah RAC Board for
Perfect.
Fish and Game.
Okay. Thank you.
And she also is very well involved in many other aspects as well, but that was why we associated her with that one.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just curious, and hopefully I'll get to meet her one of these days.
And just a side note there, she's also with Brandon. They're both members of the Beaver County Board of Commissioners.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, so
Correct. And she's on a vacation. She was going to be at the meeting today, but she doesn't take vacations very often, and this one was planned. I told her to enjoy her vacation, so I'll get even with her.
Yes.
No, thank you for that.
We're counting on you, Brandon.
Thank you for the question, too.
Yes. Okay, any other comments on the application? Yes. Sterling.
Regarding the water planning and research institutions bucket, you've listed a gentleman by the name from Central Iron County Water Conservancy District. I don't know that person. I'm sure he has water planning experience. I don't know how well versed he is on research and institution. I also see up top under agriculture someone from Utah State University. Are you feeling comfortable that your research institution, and I'm not suggesting that needs to be from academics, but was there much discussion on that? And if so, I'm assuming you're comfortable with the research institution bucket.
There was minimal discussion about that. The board was comfortable with the two names, and you might have to refresh my memory. I think Mark Nelson is one of them, and the gentleman from Central Iron County Conservancy District. I'm not really familiar with him. Paul Monroe may be able to speak to that if we need him to interject. But I can tell you the board was comfortable.
A list of names.
Those two on there.
Can you put up the list of names again? There we go.
Sorry, Sterling,
If you could share the screen again, my screen, that would be great.
So again, this has been a great discussion, but I think we can go ahead and take a motion to accept their certification and leave it up to the local council to go back and just do a little more thinking about the positions and the names that go with each of those positions, and then do what they feel like is necessary. Yes, Warren.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we certify what is this, the Cedar, gotta make sure I've got the name right, Cedar Beaver Watershed Council. So certification, and so that they feel like they know they have leave to make that some of the adjustments we've talked about.
Yes.
So move to certify the council, and with the recommendation from this council that they go ahead and adjust to meet their local circumstances as they deem appropriate. So two-part motion.
Good.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to certify the Cedar Beaver Watershed Council. And let's see, any comments on the motion again? I wonder if that ought to also include that they should reappoint their officers after the certification at their next meeting.
I'm happy to.
I don't know how technical that is, but
just and a recommendation that they reappoint their officers or ratify the appointment of their officers.
There you go.
At their next meeting.
Great.
So if the second will accept that, I'll add that to the motion.
I will.
Great. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. You're part of the group.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it. Okay. Ready for vice chair?
So the votes were pretty split, but the number one was Sterling Brown with 5 votes, which
Okay.
is not a quorum.
Right.
Not a majority.
Majority.
Mhm.
Okay, so I need some help on how we go from here.
Is Marty still online? If he's
Marty, are you
Still
available?
here.
Okay.
Well, maybe take your 2 highest scoring candidates and then have a vote, those 2.
Okay.
I hope that one of those will yield a majority.
All right. Carly, who's the top 2?
Warren is the second.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so need papers again. We could.
Can we use the back of the
Okay.
previous ballots?
or could
That
just use
works.
the previous ballot and people know who to mark. So.
We have enough to do it again here.
Yeah, we should.
Oh.
Okay, as we're doing that and collect them again, so let's see. We'll go ahead on the agenda and look at the legislative updates. So we've got Shelley here from DQ, and I don't think Peter's available, so Kim, if you could go ahead, that'd be great.
I'd be happy to, and I recognize that this is going to be kind of a crowdsourcing because a lot of the folks around this table and online participated in the session and probably have a lot more insight in some of these bills than I do. I just want to start with kind of a high-level overview. If you haven't had a chance to read the veto letter from Governor Cox, I always like reading letters from my boss, right? And it's just, thank you. It's well crafted, says me. He starts out by giving a history of the number of bills passed so we can all have a perspective. 2005, there were 370. 2024, there were 591. That's a lot of bills, folks. And he does raise some concerns in his letter about the time it takes to be thoughtful in some of this legislation, and is it really in the best interest of the state to pass this volume of bills? So I encourage you to check that out. He did veto 7 bills. None of them were water related or watershed related. 2 of them go into effect without his signature, and there are 2 bills that he set aside to address. One of them is Senate Bill 161, which is the related to IPP, and the other one is related to Salt Lake County. Because they are the only county of the first class, the district attorney position there. So those bills we anticipate will be taken up in the interim, probably through a special session to be worked on. So setting that stage, 591 bills. I am grateful as an agency that I'll just say was part of some of the legislation. Is grateful that this is behind us and in the rearview mirror, and we can all roll up our sleeves and get to work on implementing the bills that were passed and get ready for next year as well. One of the bills that I do just want to touch on is Senate Bill 57. That's a bill that was not related to water necessarily, but it's related to what could be perceived as federal overreach, and it lays out a process for the state legislature and the governor's office to push back. The sponsor was Senator Sandel, and that is something that a tool, and we appreciate the process being laid out. There was some initial discussion around air quality being used as the first test case. I'm grateful it was not. I think we've got some space to work through some of those challenges right now, but we'll see if that bill and that legislation is invoked in the near future. One of the bills that I'm sure most of the folks around this table have worked on is House Bill 280, and that was mentioned earlier in the conversation in our meeting. And does impact the Department of Environmental Quality, and that we have two divisions that work related to water quality and drinking water. But I'm going to look to Warren and others to provide maybe an oversight, and Scott, because this is, I guess, in a nutshell, is a planning approach, a long-term approach to setting up a prioritization process for how we fund our water infrastructure going forward. But I would, Mr. Chair, if you're okay with this, open this up to the committee for folks to weigh in and provide maybe a more detailed explanation of 280 if they'd like to.
Great.
I'm looking at you, Warren. So
Go
is
ahead,
that
Warren.
subtle?
Probably going to say I should turn on my microphone too, right?
That'd be a good idea.
Well, thanks, Kim, for passing that hot potato. So, it's a very ambitious bill. It's toned down a lot from where it started. So if you read the bill now and you say, "What? This is the toned down version," but let's start with the Watershed Council. It adds the Director of Division of Water Resources,
right,
and the Director of the Division of Water Rights as non-voting members of the Watershed Council. Now, I noticed that Teresa's online today. I don't know if Candace is or not, but if she's not, she's got to pass because the bill doesn't take effect till May 4th or some such thing. So, but it does make it also changes that in the list of different things that you look for on a local watershed council, having a land use planning agency on there is something the watershed councils could add now if they have statutory authority to add that. Frankly, it was probably there anyhow because of the flexibility afforded.
Yes,
but
I think so.
Now it's spelled out. Now for the hard stuff. The bill also wanted to set up a fee on water use, an end user fee, and I can think of a few friends around the table here that may have had sleepless nights over that one, because what does that look like? If you think about what it takes to assess and collect, basically it's a lot of people said, well, it walks like a tax, it quacks like a tax, and smells like a tax. So if you think about how you would impose that's going to take think of recreating either the tax commission or an arm of the tax commission just to manage that. And so the bill backed off and said instead of having a water fee imposed, that it asked the Division of Water Resources to study whether the fee should be imposed, how it should be collected, how it should be imposed or assessed, or however you want to say it. And maybe that's one reason Kim can still smile about this bill, because it went to DNR instead of to DEQ. Okay. Some other things that it did was it set up help me remember this, the Water Development Fund, is it? Water Infrastructure Fund, and did the funding come through? There's the $5 million in-bill appropriation to kind of be the starting point for that. So
I believe it came through at 2.5 million.
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we've had the Water Development Coordinating Council, and I'm sure I don't remember the name of that correctly. I've been waiting for my computer to wake up and give me the bill so I could. But anyhow, that has been just the heads of different water funding agencies within state government, and arguably their coverage is comprehensive. It goes state line to state line. But the bill also, a later version of the bill added in, or maybe a midway, there's 5 substitutes I think on this one, but about somewhere in there, around the second substitute, it called for a representative of water conservancy districts to become one of those members of the Water Development Coordinating Council. And now, but since that became a matter of controversy, that's another one that was floated to Water Resources to do a study on that as well. And then it also redefined planning, revised the planning statute, the one that Water Resources has been working under for many years. Help me remember, Todd, it also imposed a deadline for you to come out with the next iteration of the state water plan is
December 31st, 2026.
Yeah. And the bill was really overambitious, we all felt, as a water community felt, on the deadline dates for a lot of these. So that one was pushed back, I think, a year and a half from what the initial draft of the bill said. So I think, Mr. Chair, that's what mine can recollect of what was wandering about in that bill. Now, Kim, I'm going to toss the hot potato back to you.
Well, thank you, and I'm impressed you did that mostly by memory, so well done, Warren. I think that speaks to your involvement and help shaping the end product, which I appreciate.
Yes, we lived with that one for several months.
Yes. So I do appreciate that. One thing, of course, that was really important for DEQ is to maintain the state primacy, and that means preserving our SRF, our state revolving loan funds, and this bill held those harmless, which we are grateful for. I'm just going to march through the remaining few that impacted DEQ on the water side.
Shelley, Kim, sorry. If I could have one more note on the House Bill 280.
Oh, please.
Before you do that would be good. The state water plan statute was revised, as Warren mentioned, and it added a few things for this council to do.
Yes, thank you.
The Utah Watersheds Council shall advise the Water Development Coordinating Council regarding a unified water infrastructure plan. And the Utah Watersheds Council shall advise the division concerning state water planning activities. So those two responsibilities or purposes for this council were added to help us with state water plan and that infrastructure plan. And then the local watershed councils shall cooperate with the division in the formulation of the state water plan. So we felt that was important to, and we recommended this to Representative Snyder for his bill, that this entity and the local councils assist us with state water planning. So what exactly that will look like, we'll have to figure out, but we're going to reach out to the local councils and hopefully have contributions from each of those councils that end up in the state water plan in some form. And then this body can help us with the overall state water plan also as an advisor.
Yeah, and I thought that was a great contribution, or great addition, because it does allow us and all the local councils to give contributions to that state water plan, which is super important. And it's not just a one-time. So the next one's due in 26, the end of 26, but every 10 years, a new plan has to be formulated, and the input of all the watershed councils is going to be very important, I think. So.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, would it be fair to say that the watershed councils maybe be proactive on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do need to be proactive.
If you want to know what your role would look like, then reach out to Todd or to Water Resources, and don't wait for them to come to you.
Yeah, good point. And then just a comment. Also, did you have a comment, Rich?
I'll do that.
A comment regarding the addition of a water conservancy district. I don't know that was the purpose of, they wanted, what I have understood is the legislators wanted to have an entity that had construction experience with large infrastructure, on the ground, boots on the ground type entity. And so that was my understanding. Like I said, I don't think it has to be. Of course, it's written that way, but I don't think it had to be a water conservancy district per se. But that's the intent.
Wasn't part of the HB 280 also the prioritization of water projects? So I know that's one concern that I've had is, again, those of us use Board of Water Resource funding, we don't want to lose some of that connection and not be prioritized, even though it's been working.
That's a really good point, and we've also heard that from some of our smaller projects on the drinking water side as well. It's hard to compete with the dam safety project or others, right? And so we want to make sure that there's equity in how this funding is distributed. So your point's well taken.
It's going to be a tough go.
Yes.
The inflection you gave there, Kim, it's always important to spell when you say dam safety. How
Oh, you're right. Thank you again, Warren. Save my bacon. Okay. I'm just going to step through. Thank you. Unless, Laura, do you have a?
Well, this may be a future, 280, I think, should be a future agenda item for the State Watershed Council, because I think the local watershed councils are going to need guidance, especially on how they make input on the 3 items that was mentioned here, the infrastructure plan, the development plan, and the state plan. Because we've seen a variation of the types of membership in each local watershed council too. So like, I think there's going to have to be a lot of stakeholder engagement in that. Yeah.
Good point. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just moving on through the list that impact DEQ in the water space. This one's a little more broad, but it's House Bill 373, and it's called Environmental Quality Amendment. It was sponsored by Representative Snyder and Senator Sandel, and basically it provides the opportunity, if you will, for DEQ to meet with the Federalism Commission and have more formal conversations around our regulations and topics related to land, air, water, and the needs of industries, the department, et cetera. It also repeals our Air Quality Policy Advisory Board, and it addresses the sales and use tax exemptions for certifications related to pollution control, and that's both on the water quality side and the air quality side. The next bill is another pretty significant piece of legislation. It's House Bill 453, Great Salt Lake revisions. Again, it was Representative Snyder and Senator Sandel as sponsors, but there were 39 legislators that signed on to co-sponsor, so there was broad support. DEQ's only touch point is on line 1,976, just to tell you how big this bill is. So I'm going to just speak to that, but look to my friends in DNR and other agencies to weigh in on what the bill does specifically. It is, of course, addressing just broadly the severance tax distribution, et cetera. But for DEQ, it does direct us to develop a rule and set a limit for, I'm quoting here from the bill, salinity of water or brine that a person may discharge into the Great Salt Lake as part of the mineral or element extraction process. So currently there is no TDS or salinity limit for the Great Salt Lake. We have only one water quality-based standard. It also allows for the division to modify, revoke, or reissue, or even terminate a permit if that limit is exceeded. And that is something that we do have the authority to do, but it's not our first go. We usually work with industry, and there's a progressive process before we terminate a permit. So this is maybe a little bit different from how we've done business in the past, but just want to bring that to folks' attention. If there's anything else from the council on House Bill 453, I think it would be welcome if anyone has any input.
Was that the one that had some water right restrictions as well?
Yes.
So that's the one thing that I remember. I mean, and it's not to blame anybody, because I don't feel that the Great Salt Lake had a water right in the past, and so there weren't any real curtailments on the priority system. But in that bill, it basically set that as you have to be in order of priority to take water. So if there are if there are reductions by priority, they have to follow those reductions, which they haven't in the past. So.
That's right. Another very complex bill, but it we anticipate it to be very impactful, and we do hope it will result in improvements in the lake water quality and the quantity of water reaching the lake as well. I'm going to go ahead and jump on to House Bill 507, which is construction amendments, and that's related to construction stormwater. And this bill, through Title 19, addresses construction runoff controls. These are best management practices, et cetera. And it is not a perfect bill by admission of the sponsor, and we do have a commitment to work with the sponsor, Representative Musselman, and cities and other MS4s during the interim to strengthen the bill during the 2025 session. Good news as well, Senate Bill 17 extended the sunset of the Safe Drinking Water Act without any amendments. So we're pleased with that, because Of course, everyone relies on safe drinking water, and we're also pleased that without any amendments, we think we're getting we believe we have the stamp of approval, if you will, from the legislative body that this program is being administered as they intended. The last thing I had is just a bill that did not pass, unfortunately, but it's Senate Bill 203 titled Drinking Water Amendments. The sponsor is Senator Sandel and Representative Watkins, and this would have given the fee authority to the Division of Drinking Water. Now, it was circled on the very last day. We were hopeful that it was going to make it through. All of the other divisions within the Department of Environmental Quality have the authority to assess a fee. Drinking water does not. So they are very limited in how they can grow as a division. We currently have 1,200 public water systems, and the regulations and the expectations of these water systems are becoming increasingly more challenging and complex. So we've provided a significant amount of technical support to these small systems in particular, and we're looking forward to being able to add a few more folks through assessment of a fee to continue to support them. We're about 60% federally funded, 40% funded through general funds. As you can imagine, our federal funding has remained stagnant for 20 years. Same thing with our general funds. So we are going to have conversations during the interim as well, and hope it'll come back in the 2025 session. So that's my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Kim?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Kim, I appreciate that report. If we could get a copy of your kind of rundown on those bills, that would be helpful for me. I'm trying to take notes here, and there's always a lot of water bills. So on the fee assessment for, I know Tim Davis was working on that before he left, but what was the pushback on that from the legislature? Was it just not wanting to implement a new tax? What was your assessment of what happened with that bill?
You know, interestingly enough, it was at the last hour. So we had worked with Tim Davis and his Nathan Lundstad, who is the new director of the Division of Drinking Water. I appointed Nathan in January they had worked with a wide group of stakeholders to come up with a potential fee that is fair, equitable, and something that could be implemented by both in a large system as well as a small system. So I don't think there was any concerns about the fee itself. There were some small systems in Iron County that had some concerns. They felt like when they needed assistance, they went to the Rural Water Association, but not DDW. What they didn't realize is that DDW pays for that contract for rural water to support these systems. So I honestly think it was just a lack of understanding of how the money flows through our department to support rural water and others that provide assistance. So our focus will be a education campaign, honestly, during the interim months. But the fee that we were looking at was very, very small. Unless, of course, you're a Salt Lake City or an Ogden City, but it was, I want to say, I think it resulted, was it 3 cents? Something like that. 3 cents a connection a month, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe even 2 cents. So it resulted in, about 50 cents a year per connection. So very, very small. Some of the small systems that we did meet with, we do provide, if you have less than a certain number of connections, you would only need to pay a certain amount, and they felt like they could just pay for it out of their operating budget and wouldn't need to assess a new fee on their water users, so on their customers. So I do think we'll have another go at it, and would look forward to input, and I'd be happy to send out the information if you have specific feedback for us. I'd love to hear it. So.
Yeah, I'd like to know, was there a fiscal note on that, do you know?
Yes, there was.
What was that?
I don't know off the top of my head, but that's a really good question. I'd have to, we can send that out when we send out the list of bills that were discussed.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mike, I think it was unfortunate that House Bill 280 and this bill, which one was it again? The one that failed? 203, were in the same session, and they were both basically water taxes. And so I just heard a lot of feedback saying, you know, we got to stop this, and so it kind of was a result of all those things, I think. But.
And if I could just add, I bristled a little bit when you said water tax regarding our fee, but here's why, and I understand that people have different interpretations of this, but for me, a fee is something, you know, this is a service that the governmental agency can. Is really only positioned to provide to these water systems, and so for me that is a fee, not necessarily a tax, and so we will also work through some of that.
Just some education.
Yes,
absolutely. Thank you. Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Yes, Warren.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And again, I discussed this with Tim. I was on his committee there. I'm still on it. The one that looked at the being able to bring the districts together and to combine, I mean, all of the water systems. We have a lot of them. We combined down here in Kane County so that we had but the needs with water in the future, the cost of developing new water, I think we've got to look at that more. So if we could get behind that maybe next year with the Watershed Council and talk about why, these costs that we're accumulating. You can't expect small districts spread across an entire county to deal with all these problems that we come up with. So I think we ought to look at that for next year and try to get behind it and research it out a little more and find out why there was opposition. I know some of my colleagues in the 16 years I served, they just won't vote for anything that has the T word with it. So it doesn't matter what it is. So anyway.
Okay.
We should be able to get enough people to pass it, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Warren.
Thank you. If you're interested, I've got the bill open here. And so the fiscal note was $2.11 per year per connection for an aggregate total of $700 in fiscal year 2024. And in 2025, it was projected $759,300.
Thank you very much, Warren. And that would have gone just for personnel. We would have hired individuals to support these water systems.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that was Senate Bill 203. I first looked up House Bill, mistakenly looked up House Bill, and that was involuntary commitment. And I thought, somehow maybe these are related.
Could be. Hey, you better watch that one, Warren.
I agree.
All right, thank you, Kim. Appreciate that. Turn some time over to Todd and others if there are some other DNR type legislation that we want to talk about.
Yeah, so just real quickly, I don't want to linger on any of these too much, but there's a few that would be of interest to this body that I'll mention that affect water resources in some way or another, and there's others as well, but I'll just touch on a few. So House Bill 11, water efficient landscaping requirements, restricts the amount of turf that can go on state facilities, I think 20%, and requires the use of drip irrigation or prohibits overhead spray irrigation of that turf. No, sorry, not the turf, but the other landscape elements, plants and trees and shrubs. So that one might be of interest to look at. Utah Waterways Amendments is H-Bill 62 that directs the Utah Waterways to coordinate with the State Board of Education to create standards, aligned resources, and professional development opportunities to be used in Utah schools through the education system. And then this is a big one that Senate Bill 211, Generational Water Infrastructure Amendments, appoints a water agent to work with other states and entities on generational water infrastructure. And that person was appointed by Governor Cox at the spring runoff conference last week, and it's Joel Ferry. So
at least it was mentioned.
Yeah.
This guy.
So that one is interesting and maybe one that you'd want to look into a little bit. And then finally, Senate Bill 270, Utah Lake and Great Salt Lake study amendments. It requires the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands to do some studies of Great Salt Lake and Utah Lake. I think it's their resource management plans, but maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know the details of that, but just a few. I mean, there were a lot of water bills that were on tap, and not all of them passed, but quite a few did, and we got more work to do as an agency on many of these. So
Great. Any other comments on some of those other water bills? Yes, Sterling.
Todd, will you elaborate, or someone elaborate on what Joe Ferry's new job is? What is he tasked to do there?
well, let me read what is here. It directs the creation of the Water District Water Development Council under the Interlocal Cooperation Act.
Which, by the way, we did not volunteer for, to be on another council. The districts, yes.
Let me skip to the important parts.
So the way I understand is that the Water District Water Development Council really looks at potential water supply projects within the state. And there's no authority given, just some responsibility to actually look for and go back to the legislature with reports annually. And then this water agent is to look outside the state, not including the Bear River and the Colorado River, because they already have their interstate agreements.
So Utah belongs to a multi-state council. Is that what it's referring to?
No, the council is really just the internal state, inside the state boundaries, looking at potential water supply projects, or yes, water supply projects. It might be physical, it might be building something, it might just be ordinances or whatever. But the water agent is responsible to look outside the state boundaries, Idaho, Colorado, Mexico, California, wherever, to see if there's opportunity to bring water into the state from another state. He's got it easy.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I think that's a good summary. It also looks 70 to 100 years out rather than just the 50 years that we do internally.
Thus
in
the
state.
title, generational water. Did that answer a question, maybe?
I think there's one other component to that, or component, excuse me. So I think with this water agent, what you have now is you have the director or the general manager of Central Utah Water, who's on the Colorado River Authority, but he doesn't really have the authority to negotiate for the state of Utah. And so this water agent, I think, gives a state agency the authority to be involved in that discussion. And so it's kind of clarifying the roles just a little bit by allowing that, because it's kind of weird when you have Gene Shawcroft, who is on the Colorado River Authority, but yet not really representing the state of Utah per se. And so it's kind of one of those things. I think this water agent's idea is to have the state to be able to bind themselves through their water agent in negotiations that are occurring related to Colorado River water. So that's just another thought regarding it.
Thanks, Rob. Any other comments, concerns, questions on water bills? Yes.
Thank you. This is Marcel. It's not a comment on bills, but appropriations. And I know there's many more appropriations that I'm not going to be able to mention, but I was excited to see that integrating land and water planning got $600,000 one time, I think. So we're glad to see that.
Great. Yeah, good point. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go to the next item unless we're ready for vice chair. Okay, let's do that first.
So we have Sterling Brown with 11 votes.
All right.
Do we need to make a motion?
Yes. Well,
That's
majority of the council. Yes.
half.
We have 22.
Yes, Warren?
Just to make that clear, I would move that the council vote to approve Sterling as the vice chair.
Agreed. Yes. Is that a motion?
That's a motion, yes.
I'll second.
Several
both
seconds.
second.
Awesome. All right, we have a motion and a second to appoint Sterling Brown as the vice chair of this Watershed Council. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Unanimous. Good job, Sterling. Congratulations. Very good. Thank you, everyone. That was quite the effort. That was good. Okay, moving on the agenda, we have an open time for local councils, and I know we have a couple of councils that wanted to present some information. So Eric, why don't you go ahead, if you wouldn't mind, on the Jordan River Council.
Todd, if you could just pull up the...
Need a mic somewhere?
Yeah, so I've got Eric's presentation on my screen, and if that could be shared with everyone, that would be great.
Thanks. We just wanted to take this time to express our appreciation for the opportunity to really, have this stakeholder engagement across the watersheds. I think it's something that really hasn't happened seamlessly in Utah. It's still not seamless, but it does give us an opportunity in the Jordan River watershed and our surrounding watersheds to work with different stakeholders. Sharing water data has been huge, like the flows in the Jordan River, for example. You'd be doing a project down on the Jordan River and you wouldn't know that Utah Lake was coming open per se, and you'd have to get out of the way real quick as the water was coming up to the top of your boots, But having those partnerships has been really great, and these interactions, schools, conservation course, and just sharing some of these ideas. I just threw together a couple slides here about our watershed council. We kind of, in the Jordan River, we have three main kind of focal areas: river projects, outreach and education, and knowledge and data sharing. In each of these, we're trying to learn from each other on how to implement projects successfully. And outreach and education those are the people that are going to be sitting around this table at the end of that 70 to 100 year, timeline, maybe before. But we do want to get people engaged, and we do think there's a lot of great projects that have those going on. Education is really key, and there was this mention of this Utah Waterways legislation. We already have some core curriculum that meets the standards for middle school and high school on the Jordan River. That's just about done. Access is really important because people don't appreciate it if they can't access it, and then sharing the knowledge. We've also shared a lot with grant funding and opportunities. I don't know if folks heard, but the Jordan River, through the Department of Water Quality, received a $5 million grant for river work. $3.5 million is going to finish the West Jordan Big Bend, and then the other $1.5 million is going to go through Jordan River Commission to do weed control and projects and engage community. So a lot of really great things. And then that brings other funding for recreation, for water quality, and we also do a lot of work on invasive species control. The local schools come down to the river, and we do a lot of different opportunities for learning job skills and opportunities for them to just get their hands dirty, because that's what they remember. And then we have work on different partnerships, and really getting the kids out is a really wonderful part of what we're doing along the Jordan River. Of course, there was mention about water flows, and on the upper right there's the flows of today in the Surplus Canal and in the Goggin Drain, and we heard earlier today that going to be outfitting additional areas to make sure that we can monitor the water. Of course, the Great Salt Lake Strategic Plan we've heard a lot about. And then this is just from a presentation I saw. These watersheds are big, and you can't do everything all at one time. So one thing we are working on is, how do we have best practices? This is just from a Jordan River Commission best practices document. Provides information on where you're working. Are you not by the river? Are you out in the built environment? So we want to share these things, and then, you know, you got to have a goal and a system to have success. You can't just have broad goals, and that's what we're trying to work on now is kind of the system. I want to propose a future statewide watershed symposium. I'd be happy to help people come together, but I was thinking, you know, a day of talking about issues and opportunities across the watershed. And we're working on workshops this coming year. We've got land use planning. We've got community development where, you know, developers actually come to the meetings and they talk about ways to improve the quality of their projects, working on the river's edge, cooperative weed management, and all kinds of things. So thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate that information. That's some great work that's happening there on the Jordan River. Any other watershed councils that want to express anything to us today? So we do have.
Scott?
Yes.
I
Oh.
wanted to just make an addendum to Eric's presentation. He's doing a great job as our Watershed Council Chair and really proactive with the support of Soren also. We met this morning as a Watershed Council and had Tim Davis, our Great Salt Lake Deputy Commissioner, visit us and had a really great discussion also about Great Salt Lake issues and the ways in which our Watershed Council can participate in things like water conservation and other things. And so if other watershed councils haven't had the Great Salt Lake Basin, had the Great Salt Lake Commissioner come in, I think it's a really awesome thing because we have, you know, like mayors from other communities on our Watershed Council who can pass that kind of information along to their constituents as well.
Awesome. No, I totally agree with that. That makes sense. Oh, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give an update on our whole reservoir project. This project, I know we got a little criticism from one of the other groups there. Ogden was upset that we got the funding, but let me tell you a little bit about that. That project started in 1996 when we tried to get some reservoirs up on the Virgin River, off-stream reservoirs on the Virgin River, and the National Park Service and Department of Interior protested, and we reached a settlement agreement in 96 signed by Secretary of Interior Babbitt and John Leshy, the Solicitor General for Interior, and also the governor signed it, and Washington County and King County signed it. And so we've been working on this project for many, many years to try to get it in place, and we finally were able to secure funding through NRCS for it's a 75-25 match on small watersheds up to 250,000 acres. But we still needed a match, and some of that water is now going to be culinary water. As you know, this is some of the most valuable water in Utah because it's not subject to the Colorado River Compact. And so a lot of that water is going by and bypassing and going down into Nevada and to California. We feel like it's our water. We need it. If we stored it at a higher elevation at 5,000 feet rather than 2,000 feet as Quail Lake and Sand Hollow are, that we get a better return. Being able to utilize the agricultural portion of it up 3 irrigation companies, actually 4 irrigation companies. So we received a grant from the legislature, and that was very, very important to us to move this along. We did do a full environmental state or an EA environmental assessment, and we were absolutely hammered with Utah Rivers Council and 10 or 12 other entities that decided that it was controversial. And right towards the end of the last election with Biden and Trump, that thing went to the NRCS state director, said we had to do an EIS. So we're back on doing an EIS, spent over $2 million on that so far. We should be able to finish that up in October of this year. So that was very, very helpful. Water right now on the Virgin River sells for anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 an acre foot. So the savings on the water has a value of somewhere around 80 to $100 million. And again, Washington County and King County are some of the driest counties in the state, and this water is definitely generational water. So appreciate all the help from anyone that was involved with that. We did get a pretty good support from the legislature.
Great, good update, Mike. Congratulations on that project. I think it'll be, it's
thank
very,
you.
very much needed, that's for sure. Thank you. Any other updates? Great. So this next item will kind of give a schedule on when we plan on hearing from, in a little more depth from some of the local council chapters. So you can see the proposed dates there. So July 11th would be Bear River, Weber River, and Utah Lake. So we'll have 3 presentations per meeting. October 9th is Jordan River, Uintah, and West Desert. January 2025 is Kanab Creek, Virgin River, Sevier River, and Cedar Beaver. And then spring of 2025, Western Colorado River, Southeast Colorado River, and Gessell. So I'm really looking forward to those reports as we move forward. And hopefully we can do this annually so that we can have regular reports from each of the councils. And I think that's going to be invaluable to help educate all of us in what's happening throughout the state. And besides that, this council has a responsibility to report to the legislature annually. And that's going to be very valuable to help give us some materials, I guess, to help us report to the legislature. So looking forward to that. So our next one again is in July 11th.
Mr.
Sterling,
Chairman, just
yes.
confirming the October 9th. That's a Wednesday, not a Thursday. Is that correct? Yeah, okay.
And we still have the latitude of moving those dates a little bit here and there before they come up. So if you have any specific issues, we'll definitely entertain them for sure. We'd almost moved this meeting today because of spring break on many of the school districts. So, but anyway, just to let you know, they're not set in stone for sure. Okay.
Mr.
Mike?
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Todd, I'm just wondering if we could possibly invite you to Kane County in January, the whole Watershed Council. We have a really nice venue to hold this meeting, and it's a nice time to get out of the Salt Lake area in January and come to beautiful bright skies, no overcast, no haze, and sometimes it's even warm. So we'd love to have you come down and host you if that's a possibility.
Okay, we can look at that possibility. We appreciate the invitation for sure.
Bet we'll get our whatever we need, but I think it'd be good to kind of look a little bit about what's going on. We have some unique issues down there that we'd love to show you around, and then also an opportunity to see Kane County.
That's great. So Carla will make a note of that, and we'll see if we can coordinate something. Great. Thank you, Mike.
Bet.
All right, we are right on schedule. Oh my goodness. So looking for public comment. Any other comments from the public or any of the council members? Yes.
I got one, Scott. So I know, have we heard anything on where the Great Salt Lake Council is on their organization? I know there was a effort during the legislative session with
Yes.
453 to just make GSLAC that council and not include the local watershed councils, which we got Representative Snyder to take out of that bill.
Yes.
So what is the latest effort on that? We would hope that we're all included as the original legislation asked for.
Go ahead, Todd.
I've heard from Brian Steed that he still wants to pursue having the Great Salt Lake Advisory Council be the Great Salt Lake Watershed Council, but I think the concerns that were expressed that not following the original intent of the Watershed Council Act in terms of representation was an issue, so they're going to look at that and see what that council may be willing to do. I have not been given any specific insight into how that's going to proceed or what they're going to do, other than to tell our consultant not to pursue organizing that council at this time. They're focusing on the other two that remain.
I would just hope where we made Jordan River, right, they added a number of
Yes.
seats to conform with the current legislation, and I think we should, the Great Salt Lake should follow suit.
Soren, you want to grab a mic over here, Soren, please?
Hi, Soren Simonson, the Secretary for the Jordan River Watershed Council. I had the same question, Nathan, about kind of the status of that. Appreciate, Todd, your update. I'll just note, we have already appointed our representative from the Jordan River Commission to the Great Salt Lake Advisory Council, or the Watershed Council. And if there's an opportunity for that individual to be involved in those discussions, I think it would be valuable to have local watershed council perspective. The Bear and the Weber and the West Desert and others Utah Lake may be interested in that as well. So maybe using the other local watershed councils that are part of that council might be valuable as it's being developed.
That's a great point, because I think I don't know about most, but a lot of the local watershed councils have appointed one of their council members to be on that Great Salt Lake council. So, yes, Warren.
Further to this same thing, yes, the 5 that have been organized have appointed members.
Yeah.
I'm to Todd. I don't know. I'm not comfortable, frankly. I'll just express my discomfort in slowing down the creation of that Great Salt Lake Watershed Council. For a couple of reasons. One is because it's statutorily mandated, and we do have these others that are working on it. The other is that surprised. I've been involved in those discussions too, and I think if we had that council organized, that the new chair of the, and this is not a reflection on anybody, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus here. The new chair of the Great Salt Lake Advisory Council was the sponsor of the legislation that created the watershed councils, and so he has quite keen insights to all of this, and I think what we'll. And again, Don Leonard, the former director, is a good friend, longtime friend. I mean, we went to law school in the last century together. So, longtime friend. So I'm not disparaging anyone here. It's just the times have changed, and I think that the Great Salt Lake Advisory. And I always wonder, is it Great Salt Lake Advisory Committee, GSLAC, whatever? What does the C stand for? Council? Yeah, thank you. So I think he would be open to some very constructive interaction between GSLAC and the Great Salt Lake Watershed Council if the Great Salt Lake Watershed Council were established. And so that's my reason for suggesting maybe I think it's been prudent to kind of let the dust settle, but now might be a good time to go forward. But I would certainly do that in coordination with the new director and with the Great Salt Lake Advisory Council. Not trying to end run anybody here, not trying to roll anybody, just that I think there's some opportunity for synergies there that have really come out of the energy that was created in this last legislative session. So I'm being very careful not to say, well, it's just we've got a change in the guard, let's take advantage of it. No, the change in the guard's been hit with the same wave of interest that we have, and I think because of his legislative background would be open to some interaction between the two.
Great comment. I hope that we don't have to wait till the next legislation session to figure it out. So I hope the GSLAC will be amenable to sit down with whoever and discuss how we can get this going.
Sure, and if you'll pardon the metaphor, if you're playing tennis and there's no one on the other side of the net, it's real hard to get the ball back and forth.
Exactly.
But if we had the Great Salt Lake Watershed Council set up, then they would facilitate that discussion.
Absolutely, yeah, makes sense.
So,
I appreciate that.
Again, the delay, I think, was prudent at the time, but I think maybe now it's time to reopen the discussion.
Thank you, Warren.
Yeah, I'll definitely communicate that to our director and make sure she has Brian Steed's ear on that as well, that your views of that, if the council's in agreement to that approach.
Sorry, Christy, did you have something?
No.
Are you sure?
Okay.
So I'm Christy Hansen with the Bear River Watershed. I know we had stakeholders on our council who felt like the Watershed Council brought all the stakeholders together as far as getting water to the Great Salt Lake that maybe hasn't been going there. And one member in particular felt that without the Watershed Councils being part of that Great Salt Lake solution, it took some of the stakeholders off of the table who have the majority water rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So
that's good. Good point.
I just think everything is talk aboutable. And that particular piece of legislation was very discouraging for me, that small proponent of it. So I really thank Representative Snyder for working and listening so that we could readdress that.
Thank you. Thank you. Good point. All right. Any other comments at all? Okay, great. Todd, do you have anything on administrative updates?
I do.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of fun stuff. I have some logos that we put together that I've been talking about for
that's right.
several
We did
meetings.
bring that up. Yeah.
And we have a few drafts to show you, so let me bring that up. Got a few different options, and we're hoping to capture the map of all the councils in it somehow. And I have a few examples of how to do that.
So
And-
the state council as well as the local councils
Yeah.
have a similar, very nice.
And we're kind of thinking maybe doing different colors for the local watershed councils, but we also thought that if we could have an iconic feature in each of those councils that's maybe distinguishing, like the Vermilion Cliffs in Sevier River drainage, some red Zion Canyon and Kanab Creek Virgin or something, Great Salt Lake for the Great Salt Lake Watershed Council, instead of the maps. It might be a nice touch too, but there's one more option here. So we're working on a few designs that we can share and maybe survey out using constant contact to all the council members of this council as well as the local councils to get their feedback on what design they like the best. So maybe it's just something to look forward to that we'll probably do that prior to July 11th.
Okay.
Just get feedback.
That would be great. So,
And-
yeah, we'll email those out and get your comments on those.
So that's kind of the plan, and just thought it would be fun to show you some of those that we've been working on. There was one other item. Rachel Shilton in our office over the River Basin Planning section and her staff are responsible for the division's efforts regarding water, incorporating water as part of general plans. So she thought that might make a good presentation at some future meeting. Those need to be incorporated into general plans by the end of 2025, I believe. So maybe in the next meeting or two, we could do that or later. But she's also planning to reach out to the local watershed councils and have some presentation to those groups also, since it's kind of a locally driven thing, or it has to be implemented at a local level. So just that suggestion's been made, and that will be on the list of ideas that we consider next time, Scott and Sterling.
No, it's a very important
Yeah.
piece of that. So
That's all I had.
all right.
Scott?
Yes.
Well, just real quickly, Todd, what's organizationally, how is Carly's new position different than yours? And how does that relate to the other staff members that are assigned to each local council?
Okay, yeah, very good question. Thank you for asking that, Sterling. We we received funding for an FTE in 2020 when the Utah Watersheds Council Act was first passed. We decided to use that funding, at least for the first few years, to hire a consultant to help us organize the local watershed councils, and that was the Langdon Group, and they've done a Herculean effort getting these people together and organizing each of the councils so far, and they're going to have the last two, besides the Great Salt Lake Watershed Council, organized in the next few months, if not in the next month or so. So that effort's coming to a conclusion. We got some additional funding this year from the legislature, $150,000 to help supplement that. And because of that, we decided it's now a good time to pull the trigger on hiring a watershed council coordinator. And so that person is now a full-time person who will be devoted primarily to working with watershed councils on the administrative side and also helping them to be successful. So Eric's idea of doing a symposium for watershed councils is something we've thought of, and we're glad to hear there's interest in that and people willing to volunteer to help do that, because that's an idea that this watershed council coordinator could help us with organizing and getting that done. So that would be something that Carly does. Carly's been doing a lot of the administrative work already as an office specialist within our office, but now she has the title to work exclusively or primarily with watershed councils. I was her direct supervisor, and that's why she was working for me on that. But now she's going to take that responsibility, and she works now for Rachel Shilton. So at some point, Rachel might assume this role that I've been taking, working with this council. I don't know if that is necessarily a requirement, but I think that might be a good thing for her to work on and be closer engaged with Carly's work as Watershed Council Coordinator. So I will still be engaged and willing to support the effort as the planning branch manager. Rachel works for me. She's a manager over the River Basin Planning Section. So my role might not change that much at first, but over time I'll shift more of that to Rachel, and of course Carly has already assumed a lot of the work, administrative work, that I'm so grateful for her willingness to do that as part of her office specialist duties. Does that answer your question, Sterling?
And Rachel just walked in the room, so if any of you don't know Rachel,
yeah,
appreciate it, Rachel. Thanks for that comment.
And you mentioned the area planning specialists. I didn't mention them, but you did. We have area planning specialists in our office. These are engineers or environmental scientists or other professionals that are appointed to work with various various watersheds to be kind of a local expert. And we've encouraged those area planning specialists to work with the councils to be a liaison appointed between us and those councils.
Great idea.
And they'll be working closely with Carly to make sure we can provide the support that's necessary. The Langdon Group's been doing a lot of the Zoom meetings. We're going to assume that role and provide a live YouTube stream probably as part of that, and a recording that can be viewed after the meetings are concluded, all on our website. So that's one thing we anticipate doing that will be different than what we have done so far as we move this forward and try to help these councils grow and be successful.
Great. Yes, Warren.
Thank you. One other question. As I would expect others are having the same experience I am, that people come to you with suggestions for, would the watershed councils be looking at this, or would they be taking it? What would you like to see as far as us as council members feeding that information to Carly or to you or wherever for proposing either agenda items or activities or other things that come with the territory?
Yeah, Carly's going to be the go-to person, but any communications, I'd love to be copied on that so that I'm aware of it. Carly and I coordinate fairly closely, and Todd on the agendas, upcoming agendas. So we'd love to get some ideas and thoughts on those.
Okay.
We haven't scheduled any tours for the group, but it looks like Mike Noel would love to take you out to see some things in January next year, in addition to having the meeting there. So I think that would be a great idea. Those kind of things could be very useful and educational for this group.
It would. I agree. All right, anything else come toward, before the council?
I had a
Rick?
quick question on these presentations each
Yes.
time we meet. Is it 5, 10? What's the expectation on time? So that whoever is presenting, we can make sure
Yeah.
to at least relay that.
I would say 10 to 15 minutes is my thoughts on that. We need to give you enough time that you can download the information you need to, but we've got other things on the agenda as well.
Right, that's what I want to clarify.
Okay, with that, Warren.
One other thing, for those of us who didn't manage to get to the breakfast meeting in St. George.
Yes, I was going to update on that.
How, tell us about it.
I thought it
would
was a
you?
good turnout. We had, I don't know, 25, 30 people?
I think 45.
45?
That's what I counted, yeah.
Had a good group and a great breakfast as well. And I was trying to remember some of the things that we talked about. Can you remember?
alarm.
Oh. Fire alarm in one of the hotels, woke everybody up at 2 o'clock. That was awesome. Just had an update. I know Mike Noel gave us a great update on things that were happening down there in his neck of the woods. We did touch on some legislation. Anything else, Carly or Todd, that
I think
came up?
that's about it.
Yeah.
Candace Hasenjager
Oh, yeah,
gave
Candace
her rally cry, so she's great at that. It was mostly a networking. We want to
Yes,
help these
yeah.
councils feel a sense of community.
Yeah, I thought it was it was a great idea to have, and it worked out great. So we had a lot of the water users down there at the conference, so it made a lot of sense. Yeah.
I begged for being able to participate virtually, but Carly couldn't figure out how to serve breakfast over the.
Good point. All right, if there is nothing else, a motion to adjourn be welcome. Warren, motion second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a great spring, and hopefully the water will come off the mountains in a organized way. Yeah, it does.